In this video, which we filmed over 20 years ago, I chat to my now late uncle David Austin, the rose breeder, and my cousin, the younger David Austin, with a view to finding some really good, easy roses for my sister Sophia's garden in London. They explain that actually pruning roses can be really very straightforward, and also that they can be great for north-facing walls.
Well, I always think it's rather remarkable that not only is it a good border plant, but it's a very good climbing plant. In fact, it's probably the best of all climbing plants. There's a vast range of them. They're good on walls or any sort of structure. They're nicely flexible to thread through the trellis work. Ramblers on the whole flower once in the season, but they make a massive display. And they're excellent plants for trellis while they're in flower. But of course, once you've had your go, you're finished for the year. Whereas a climbing rose is much more like an ordinary garden rose, and it flowers continuously throughout the summer, which is what smaller gardeners really want. No flower has such a range of fragrances as the rose, and a lot of people say that you really can't smell a rose if you bend down to smell it. But if it's up on high, on a trellis, you can walk up to it and sniff it, and you get the full effect.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Good to see you.
And you? Everything all right getting here?
Oh, fine. No problems on the M6 for once. I've got a problem, David. I'm looking for plants for Sophia's garden. Now, it's a small London garden, and you know what Sophia's like. She loves champagne and shopping, but she's not really an Alan Titchmarsh. So I'm looking for some climbers, maybe roses. She loves roses, to go up some trellis, quite close to the house.
Climbers, like all types of roses, come in many different shapes and sizes. So the important thing is to pick something that's suitable to the height that you're working to, which is
2-3 meters. I mean, she doesn't want to be climbing up miles. She'll never bother with that. It's got to be easy.
So you don't want the ramblers because they're too vigorous. No. And even many of the traditional climbers can be too large.
Yes, and they look all sticky at the bottom, and it's quite close to the house.
Absolutely. Well, we found almost by accident that many of our varieties, like Graham Thomas, a Shropshire lad, Crown Princess Margarita, make superb short climbers. And they have the advantage that because they are shrubby in nature, if you arch the growth, you can get flowering right from the base right to the top of the trellis.
But could she manage these? I mean, I can just see Sophia pruning, or can I? I can hardly see Sophia pruning.
Yeah.
It has to be really foolproof. How would she prune something like that?
Pruning is one of these myths and made very complicated by many people in horticulture and in the rose business. But in fact, it's very simple.
And she doesn't have to have the secateurs at a proper angle and cut below the lowest bud?
It's one of our biggest pet hates, the rules about in horticulture that state these silly rules that just complicate things for the grower. Very simple, just cut it. I mean, here with our shrub pruning, we actually use hedge cutters as the first stage, so we couldn't possibly work to an outer-facing bud. And in fact, in practical terms, it is totally unnecessary.
So I've also seen climbing iceberg here. Now, that's a wonderful classic climber. Would you recommend that for Sophia's garden?
Very good rose, perhaps a little bit light on the fragrance. So something like perhaps Crown Princess Margarita, which is fragrant, would go very well on a colour base as well.
So we could use the two of them, the iceberg and the Margarita. Lovely. Sophia's garden has 4 walls, each facing a different aspect. So what should we put on the north and east?
Well, north-facing walls is another myth of rose growing. In fact, most climbers will perform very well on a north-facing wall as long as there's sufficient light level.
So that really widens up our choice. But I think we've sorted it now, haven't we? We'll do iceberg climbing, not such good fragrance, but a good doer.
Yeah.
Crown Princess Margarita, wonderful fragrance.
Yeah.
And Graham Thomas.
Excellent selection.